We're now in Monument Valley on the Navajo Reservation, one of the most beautiful places in the world. What is really very distressing and heart-rending is that while we're looking at the extraordinary beauty out here, we're also aware of the fact that it is very highly uranium contaminated. This gorgeous place not only is getting a good deal of uranium dust, which is coming down from some of the mesas, but we're also looking at a place that's totally contaminated in terms of its groundwater.
It hurts me to know that because of the beauty, I can't even imagine the deep devastation that the Navajo must feel.
It's really disturbing because they're still living here, they're breathing it in, they're ingesting it, they're eating it, they're drinking it, and they don't know what's poisoning them or why.
So service learning has the combination of really learning about a particular culture. It can be from your own communities. So you learn a lot about that community. And then the second part of it would be offering a service to the community. Unless you know the community, that's kind of difficult to determine what is going to be really useful for them. Now in this case, we already knew that that this community had a problem, and that's what we want to look at. Always in social science, the first part is identifying the problem. And so we knew that there was a problem here. And the problem was that for many years we have uranium mines throughout the area, and that contamination was a serious problem. So we're going to have to look into that and talk to people about how serious it is and what kind of danger it is. We're filming the people and the area, so right away we're collecting evidence. And that's the second stage of social science projects, is to identify the problem, collect all the information you can about the problem. By the end of the week, you will know exactly how you want to, each of you individually, want to be of service to this community, because each of you come with individual talents.
It's an opportunity to fully understand really what's out there, and it's an opportunity to explain that and take that with you and reveal it to other people.
Well, this is an example of the polarities that we find on the Navajo Reservation. On one side here we have Alhambra Rock, a very famous place in the reservation. It is said in the Dinet Bahana, which is the creation story of the Navajo, that at one point the sky was much lower than it is now, and the sun was actually burning the earth and the people on it. And so they asked the gods to lift up the sky and the sun, and they put several rocks throughout the reservation to do that. And Alhambra Rock is one of them. So we're here in a very sacred area. So then you cross the road, and what do you see? The first thing you see was something that looks as though it is a lake, but it is not a lake. It was a disposal site for the uranium. The uranium mine was about 5 miles to the right, and all of the material was brought to this area for milling and preparation so that it could be taken away by truck. And so it's highly radioactive. Now there's a school, if you notice 2 buildings down from that is the school, the elementary school. And people that I know who are in their late 30s and 40s have told me that when they were going to school there, this gravel was not placed there, and that many of the children would be over there playing in the sand and having a wonderful time, not at all being aware of the tremendous dangers that it held for them. So that we have again, these extremes of great beauty and spiritual significance, and then the frightening aspect of the uranium. We're going to the Utah mine, and we're extremely remote. In fact, driving through here, you kind of say a prayer, your tires hold up. We have a beautiful mesa across from us here, and as we go to this mine, we have people who have lived in this area and who have been exposed to this mine with us.
We're walking on it now. This is it. This is the mining roads. This was all open pit in here. My grandma, when I was in junior high, we used to have a sheep camp right next to the waste, where they had a pile of waste up here.
Oh, wow.
And we used to play. If you're looking at this area here, you see all that wash. The wash is coming all here, down this valley. The water just takes all that uranium down into Holjeto community. And then you can see how the land is just flat. All that wind carries all that uranium, and then it just drops down the valley on the Holjeto community. Okay. We're on top of the El Cap Flat Mesa near Moonlight Mine. This is Bruce and Anna Holligan.
I was just wondering, sir, at what age did you enter the mines, you and your friends? How old were you when you went to work?
They did, then so queen not kind of then
20, 22 ได้แล้ว
around about 22.
How are your friends doing?
All his workers, they all passed on. Even the white guys, they all passed on.
Did anyone, any of your employers, warn you about any of the dangers that were inherent with the mining?
People telling them said, "Don't worry, it's safe. It's just like natural sand around him." That's how he thought too. Okay, it's just like regular sand that's out here. But so when he is in there, when he has muddy hand and dirty hand, they eat in the mine. When he working there, they didn't have any protection for their breathing, for the nose piece. So after that, he started breathing. His breathing got very weak, and his heart was getting weaker. So to this day, he has to take asthma pills to keep everything open and normal.
I wanted to know exactly when you found out what was really going on and the potential danger of all of it, and how you found out.
He's starting to see their kids, they're getting these sickness. Even Anna, they got sick later on after those years. And one of his sons said when he got older, he saw these black spots on his skin. So that's when they took him to the in the better house. And then one day one day he said he just all of a sudden he just broke his leg. So that's when they took him to the clinic. When they took him to the clinic, they found out there was in his bone it wasn't normal. There was some that disease already in his bone.
And they saw that in the X-ray.
They saw that in the X-ray. So that's where, and after that, and then she got sick. She had a sore that wasn't healing. They found a cancer in her stomach. That's where the cancer come. They said it was from the uranium.
Is it the water contamination that is their primary concern at this point?
He knows there's a contaminated water. When you go to the Navajo community, we have a chapter, a meeting house down here. There's a lot of posters of the areas where they have wells. They say, do not drink this. Do not have your livestock drink those water. If he wants to drinking water, he usually go to Kayenta.
How far is that?
Kayenta, how far? It's about 20 miles from here. That's how far it was. And that's in Arizona.
What do the effects of the uranium on the water have on the sheep and then the diet that you guys eat, including vegetation?
You know, if your animals start grazing around there and you're still eating the vegetation and the water from the rain that runs down, if you're still drinking that, you will be in the meat, and then you eat those. It will it's still going to affect your kids.
So what are you guys studying back east?
We've been studying a course on the Navajo Indians at Tunxis Community College in Farmington, Connecticut. We've been studying with the lovely Dr. O'Neill. It's been a pleasure.
The main focus of our trip is uranium mining and the effect that it has had on the people, the animals, the agriculture, and the land. And I noticed directly behind you on that rock face, there's a white stripe that comes down, and we've been told that that is actually uranium. And while we were walking over there, I saw a herd of sheep grazing. And I was just wondering, you know, are those sheep being herded because they're actually going to be eaten? And is there any concern because they're herding and grazing right where that uranium is?
Yeah, we use sheep for food, so those sheep's gonna be eaten later on again. But you can tell where the streak of white sand is coming down. That's all those mine wastes and ores and stuff that are still coming down that way. The fenced-in part is where the hot spots are. There's one on below. There's one on top. The one on below is where they used to load up with the uranium and haul them out. And then the one on top, that's where all that that uranium comes down and just piles up there.
Just to my side, you can see a little toy car where the children are playing. Does that make you worry that the children could be affected?
Oh yeah, we have over probably 8 mines out here. Some of them are not closed off real good to where kids can go into and stuff like that.
My dad used to work in the uranium mine at the BCA. We used to live over there when I was small, about 3 years old. So I played in the water over there.
How was the health of all the children that were playing in the mine water and down in the mine?
One of my brother, he died of leukemia about last 2 years ago. And my own daughter, she died of leukemia at the age of 6, way back in the 79. So I got 2 deaths in the family.
Did anyone ever tell you the reason that these 2 people had leukemia?
I went to school until I was 14 years old. Most of us are uneducated, so we don't know about what danger is there.
I was wondering if you believe that there is a connection between the uranium and what happened to your daughter.
So I believe that these are dangerous things around here, dangerous. So I believe it.
I was wondering if there were other children that have suffered from this, and if there were other families that you know.
It's been affected to most of the children around here. One of my cousins, she died of leukemia too. They used to live here.
Mary, I'm a nurse, and having lived in Connecticut all my life, I had never heard of a uranium patient until I went to Professor O'Neill's class. It is something so foreign to the East Coast, I would like to bring the information back there so people will understand. And I really feel for your loss, and I know nothing can change that, but maybe more information for more people can help.
Daniel, was it true that until 10 or 15 years ago, people weren't aware of the connection to the illnesses with the uranium?
Yes. They found out until after the 15 years ago, and they found out that it was dangerous. Mary just talk about the one of the mine that that the VCA. He's mentioned about VCA. The VCA is that cone ridge right there is the earth of the backbone. Behind there is where they have a big mine of uranium mine.
Do the Navajo people know enough to stay away?
They don't know. They don't know. People they still live just right closer where the mine used to be.
That's horrible.
Yes.
I live near where the uranium mine is. My oldest daughter, I got pregnant where near the mine, and she's the one that had thyroid too. She was staying at Chinle Hospital, and then she went to Albuquerque. And me, last year in June, I got the thyroid too, so I went to Provo and I got my surgery here in June last year. Because I can't breathe, you know, even when I get the cold, like coughing, sometimes I can't breathe.
Do you think the problems with your thyroid and your breathing problems and having to use the inhaler are related to being by the mines and the uranium?
The dust is going around here, and that's why we had this, you know, all these sickness are here, yeah.
Sherry, do you feel, you've heard your mom talk about this issue for quite some time now, do you feel that, how do you feel this has affected you, not just with the baby, but generally, has it affected you, this whole uranium problem?
Recently, I think about 2 years ago, I went to the clinic and they x-rayed me, and they found like a little dark spot somewhere close to my heart. I think it's on one of my bones or something. I'm not really too sure. But, yeah.
When you're feeding her, what do you use for the water for the formula?
Baby water from the stores. I probably wouldn't want her to drink the water from here because of what's going around in the uranium. So we usually just get the water from the store.
What do you think you'd like people to know about this? You know, we're going to be talking about it and so forth. What do you think people should know about this situation, this problem?
Even at the school, they never talk about and how the uranium mine is going to harm other people's. People just raise the sheep, and the sheep drink water anywhere, and they don't think that it's going to harm them.
So the information just about the danger just isn't
Yes.
being circulated among Navajo people.
Yes,
Well, I know that when we all get back, we're definitely going to contact newspapers in Connecticut and try and contact the local newspaper out here, which I think is the Navajo Times, and try and, I think, focus more on informing the Navajo people themselves, which that was the biggest shock to me, to find out how little they knew about it. To inform them not only about the dangers of uranium and how to prevent it, but also to what avenues they can take to get compensation. Every person that we talked to had some personal connection to, somebody in their family was harmed by the radiation of uranium. Every single person that we talked to.
We need to get some kind of education in Navajo translation for them.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make them aware, because if you give it to the children in the schools, they can relay it to their families. And if you have that going on, and then you have people from an outside source spreading the word and making people aware, you can really make change.
We have a day coming up at the college, and that's the beginning of informing people back in Connecticut. I told you I had no idea. None whatsoever. Never saw a uranium patient, and I have seen thousands of patients. Never even heard of this. So I believe it's our obligation to do something.
I don't think that any of us are gonna just forget about this. I don't think it's possible.
There may be things we can do as a group, and there may be things we can do individually.
10 minutes a day, whether it's research or a phone call or, working on something or making someone else aware. I mean, I think it's really time that as a human race, we really take responsibility and start really taking care of each other. It's time to step up, because at the end of the day, you can point the finger at the private company or the government, but it doesn't change the reality of the situation. And people need to ask themselves, what have I done to help the situation?
It's an honor to be out here on the Navajo reservation.
It's just so breathtaking, it's hard to express.
You can just see for miles almost. You can't really do that in Connecticut.
It's very life-changing to come out here and see things.
To see the actual method or how they live as an awakening.
It's very different, something everyone I feel should experience. I'm Chelsea Pelletier. I'm very honored to be here. I interviewed mostly the women in the project. What are some of your early childhood memories?
Her earliest memories are about her grandmother and grandfather and preparing foods from corn, like cornmeal mush and cornbread kind of thing. And then we also make this pancake type of bread where you put goat milk in it. She also talked about butchering and prepared meat with her grandparents, her grandma. Everything from taking the sheep apart to fixing the hide. When she got a little bit older, her older brother went away to school, and then she stayed home and didn't go to school. Just her older brother did.
My name is Joseph Jankowski, and it's also a very big honor for me to attend this function. I did a couple of interviews myself growing up.
Growing up?
Yeah.
We live in a hogan like this, and I was raised in a hogan like this. 1947, I went to Tuba City and started school from there. And that time during the war, we started first grade, and there's a military type of school.
You lived home and then went to school, or you stayed right at school?
We live in boarding school.
Boarding school. I have read that they, when you went to the schools, they didn't allow you to speak your language. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Forced you to speak English.
Yeah, forced us to speak English, that's right. Yeah. Anybody catch them talking Navajo, they punish you. Makes you chew soap.
My name is Barry Snydak. This is the third course that I'm taking here. I did a lot of filming and also some interviewing. Here they have more of a family spirit to them.
When he was of age to marry, he was given to his wife, Jessie. And that's how it translates when you talk about wedding in Navajo. And he said, we did the traditional wedding, so they used a traditional ceremonial basket to do the ceremony. And he said, to this day, we're still together, we're growing old together.
My name is Jason Carey. and it's an honor to be out here on the Navajo reservation. My role on this service learning project was to deal with filming.
Okay, how long have you been weaving the rugs or the dresses?
She's been weaving since 16 years old. The blue is the sky or the universe, and then the red is the earth. The long lines all the way across is a path or a road. Okay, and then black signifies darkness, and then the plus signs or the crosses are the sacred mountains.
I really think another thing that we created here in doing this project, we exposed the young adults to the elders.
Do you have any advice for the younger generation?
Sod. She keeps reiterating about the need for the younger kids to understand and speak Navajo. That Navajo should be spoken at home and English at school instead of having parents sometimes speaking English to their kids. And if they are raised more in an environment like that, they would know more about horses, how to take care of horses and sheep and, livestock. And, if they understood Navajo, then she would give instructions of whatever they need to do on a daily basis. She would give instructions on chopping wood, stay at home, and not go off anywhere, take care of the home. But it's hard to do that because the children don't understand a lot of times when you try to speak to them like that.
Speaking of the interviews, there were so many people out there, especially I think the medicine man really hit me with their tools. And I hadn't known before there that they didn't just buy their tools or find their tools, they actually had to acquire them.
He was talking about ailments that some people get, such as cancers. We call it never healing sore. That's how we translate the word cancer. When people go to the clinic, they get treated for that. There was a time when not as many Navajos were affected by that. Those were times when people utilized ceremonies a lot more than they do now. Some of those diseases, when you get down to the source of it using the traditional ways, they come from things such as eating food that has been affected or contaminated by tornadoes and lightning and hail. All of those are elements that really affect the human body. When he collects herbs for people, those prayers are very specific to the patient. So it's not like what you get from the pharmacy where things are just made. Herbs are very specific to that person who it's being made for. And when he does these prayers and offerings, he is just a person who is the intermediate person, and it's the holy people who actually are the ones who do the healing. So he's not the healer himself, he's that person who goes in between the patient and the holy people.
Things feel very spiritual, it's very calm and quiet out here, very peaceful, and this land feels powerful.
When he prays to Mother Earth because we walk on it, we eat on it, and then we pray to the holy people that exist in the universe, and talking God, second talking God. So there's a multiple of holy people, and we always pray for healing to make things good for ourselves, for people, for others.
I'm Dr. Fran O'Neill. I'm professor of psychology here at Tunxis Community College.
And I'm Ken Mikulski, Professor Emeritus of Sociology and Anthropology here at Tunxis.
You know, Ken, we've worked so many years on this. In fact, it's been 10 years. And over that period of time, not only have we taught courses in Native American studies and also gone out to the reservations with our students, but remember, we've had so many times in which the people have come, the Native people have come to Tunxis. In fact, usually once a semester we have a group coming out. We've had the beautiful musicians, we've had all kinds of beautiful artists. So we like to think that we are not only educating and helping support the people out there, but certainly our own community here as well. But one of the core features of this service learning project is the fact that it fits well within the framework of anthropology.
Anthropology is the broadest social science. In my opinion, it covers a lot of information regarding human life. What's interesting about it is that the dominant aspect of anthropology is culture. The students had a great opportunity to go into the Navajo country, to actually visit with people, talk with people, be in their homes, to study exactly how they live on a day-to-day basis. That cultural background, that understanding of the culture is what we commonly refer to as participant observation as part of field work. What's interesting is that the students, I think, had a particular hypothesis or idea based on the course, based on some of the readings and studies that they did about the uranium mines and the Navajo land in general. But I'm impressed with the fact that they were shocked. They were really amazed at what they actually saw in real life. That kind of learning, that kind of self-awareness and understanding of what's going on around them, I think really is the key part of service learning and anthropology. There is a new subfield called applied anthropology, and for the most part, that's what they were engaged in. They were actually helping to inform, to educate the Navajo people about their environment, how dangerous it was. I think there was some level of understanding about that, but providing these tools like the Geiger counter certainly helped to bring out the dangers in a much different way. Within the time frame that they had, the students certainly picked up a great deal of knowledge, perhaps, as they have talked about today, to build on and to incorporate into their careers, no matter what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. I don't think they'll ever forget that experience. And I think what they picked up in regards to how people are being treated in that part of the United States will certainly affect them.
To begin with, I'm just interested in knowing what your reasons were for taking this course. Can we go around one at a time?
I just loved Professor O'Neill's enthusiasm for the Native peoples, and she really drew me in, and I would hang on every word that she said, and I just learned to love them like she did.
I had signed up for another course, and that course was all filled up. So I was going through a list of other options that I could take, and I had no idea that there was a Native Peoples of the Southwest. That was the first class with Fran O'Neill that I took. And upon finding that, it was, it had to be that course, because I've always had a deep interest in Native American culture.
I started taking courses here so that I can go into nursing. I need to take elective courses. I didn't know exactly what I was going to take, and I saw anthropology. And I know that as a nurse, it's good to kind of get a feel for different types of people, different types of cultures, because I don't know exactly where my nursing career is going to take me. And I got into her course online. And as I started to go further into the course, I realized that I actually really, really, really liked it. And I got so into it that I found out I can do an extra credit project.
I had recently graduated. I went to Southern Vermont College in Bennington for my undergrad, and I double majored in creative writing and English, and I graduated not knowing what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, you know what, maybe I'll try playing the field in terms of a career to help figure out what I wanted to do. So I started applying for jobs as a teacher's assistant on Native American reservation. So I was reading the newspaper one morning with my mother. We were having coffee, and I saw this ad for the Navajo Indians, Tunxis Community College. And my brother had just started taking courses here, and my mother signed up for a French course, and I was like, I better call her and see if, as a non-degree student, I would be able to sign up.
I'm interested in hearing from each of you how you felt the experience affected the content of the course itself, the theory.
It definitely deepened my understanding of the curriculum. To be specific, to give you an example, the landscape itself is very significant to the Navajo. The land is sacred, and being in the presence of Alhambra Rock and other sacred spots, it's an overwhelming feeling that you don't get from a book.
It's one thing to pick up a couple scholarly articles and say, whoa, I had no idea that this was going on. But it's another thing to be out there, and it hits you on such a high level. It hits you on a level that books can't. It's one thing to see it, and it's another thing when you're interacting with them and you're asking them questions and getting their story, and you see firsthand the life and the living conditions.
The people that we had met and the stories that they told, it was very powerful. And that was compounded by the land itself and our theoretical understanding, our academic understanding of their culture. And it created learning on an emotional level that couldn't have been done in a classroom.
There's one direction of communication in Jeff's example of picking up some research on a particular topic or area. So the research informs you. You receive the information. You can only interact insofar as you can assimilate the information, and that is the learning process of reading an article or reading a book to some extent. I think maybe I'm hearing that you were impacting upon your own learning by being there, that by interacting with the environment, the people, the place, the spirituality, that you perhaps were able to inform and take ownership of your own learning in some ways that could not be achieved by reading a research article, let's say.
Absolutely. The more we learned, the more questions there were. And we learned that with each person that we spoke to had a very personal, very profound story to tell. And in regards to, going from an academic setting to seeing the curriculum firsthand, I actually have an example to tell you. I think it was the first night that we were there, we went to the Mojave reservation, and we saw Mojave Days celebration, which involves bird songs and bird dances, which are traditional Mojave customs. And I had read about this stuff, and when you're reading a book, when you're in a class and you get into the academic kind of state of mind, it's easy to, I guess, separate the curriculum from reality. It's like, this stuff exists, here's the facts, and it's almost like it existed thousands of years ago or millions of miles away, galaxy far, far away, right? This localized it and personalized it. We were seeing the stuff that we had been learning about this culture. It was alive and it was vibrant and it was right in front of me, and it was really incredible.
I wonder if you think that this experience enables you to take ownership of your own learning. If you agree or disagree and you'd like to elaborate, but also what has that meant for other learning experiences that you have since then?
It does put you in a position to take ownership, because you have to speak up. You have to open your mouth. You have to ask questions. You can't sit there and be quiet You just flip through the pages. So you have to come up with some kind of question, and you have to talk to these people. You have to do research. So you have to take responsibility for what you're out there to do. And that does kind of catapult you to do more when you leave.
I think that that's the goal of service learning, and I would argue that it's the goal of education in general, because any professor has the intention of passing on knowledge to a student with the hopes that that student will go on to affect reality in some way that has like an ameliorating effect on society at large, right? That's all in the future. It's a hope for the future. This removes that amount of time and puts it directly into the present. So the professor is actually guiding the student and showing them exactly everything they've been learning and putting them in a position where they can make a difference right now.
While you were there and in the immediate aftermath, what were you able to work on or help that was of benefit to the community that invited and received you while you were down there?
There's heightened interest in testing water, contacting members of government to investigate certain areas that are troublesome. There was an area that we visited that Jeff mentioned where there is a streak of uranium that's coming down the side of a mesa, and it leads directly down to an area where a family grazes their sheep. The sheep are eating the irradiated crops, and they're eating the meat, and obviously this is a dangerous situation. But before we went, we would run into people that really didn't know like what uranium was. We would get the question, what is radioactivity? What is uranium? What does it do? There isn't much knowledge about it over there. But as a result of what we have done and kind of the spark that we set over there, it's starting to spread. And there's evidence of that people are really starting. And I guess I'm surprised at how much it's affecting it. Like when we came back, I didn't know what to make of what we had done, like if we had really made any kind of a dent in what the situation was. There was, I would say, a fair amount of doubt, or at least a question of it. But now what I'm hearing is that it is starting to become a regular topic among the Navajo, and they're starting to recognize the problem.
Right, one of the things that happened was while we were out there, we showed the families the Geiger counter, and when Professor O'Neill went back, I think it was in December, she gave Daniel Chi a Geiger counter, and he's been going over the reservation and actually taking readings, and there's a lot more awareness now that he actually has a tool that he can use, so that's a really good outcome from our trip out there.
What did you do as a project to reflect upon the course?
I was very interested in learning how to weave, and while we were there I actually bought some implements. When I got home I decided to make the Navajo loom myself, so I went out and I bought the wood and I crafted the loom from a book that I had purchased, and I learned how to string it and actually how to use the implements, and I did make, I started a rug.
I had written a paper that was involving the history of the mining, the uranium mining. And that was, definitely enhanced by the experience of meeting people that were directly affected by it.
I put together a slideshow and I put some wording to it. The photos were from different parts of our trip that we had taken, and I've actually been able to present it a few different times to different boards and different events.
I wrote a creative nonfiction memoir just regarding our experiences out there, the interviews with the people, my interactions with the landscape and the geography, my own spirituality in reaction to theirs.
Did you feel there was a need for you to go up to your professor after the experience and talk about it? Were there things that emerged from those conversations that maybe were difficult, maybe were enlightening?
In regards to, going up to my professor and having conversations about things that had happened and the way that it had affected me, that was something that I think was going on continuously throughout the entire experience. And also afterwards.
While we were out there, we were invited to a nightway ceremony, and our professor had never been to one, but we studied it in the textbook, and we all arrived at the nightway. We were the only Anglos there.
What is it?
It was a healing ceremony, and it was performed on a woman, and the whole Navajo community comes together in support of the patient, is what they call them. And we had read about it, but our professor had never been to one, and this was our first experience also. And at the end of we were there for quite a few hours, and it went on for days. I believe it's a 7-day ceremony, and this was toward the end. And we all gathered while we were ready to leave. And I remember Fran being so excited because she said, do you remember how the Navajo borrow from other cultures? And I said, yes. And she said, well, did you recognize that this ceremony, the dances that we had seen that night, were taken almost directly from the Pueblo Indians? And I did recognize that. So it was a really cool aha moment that we had. It was really neat.
It's not an aha moment, but it's a oh no moment. We were out in the middle of the landscape in the mesas. We had sat down to eat lunch, and we actually had soup, and everyone was sitting and eating, and halfway through eating, I kind of was wondering what I was eating, because it didn't look like anything I had eaten before. And I remember saying to Dr. O'Neill, I think that this was sheep. And she said, yeah, we were eating the sheep, or mutton as they called it. And I felt horrible because I didn't eat it all, because I know that the sheep grazed on the land which was poisoned. And I was struggling with this internal conflict of, oh my goodness, they were so gracious to come and bring us this, native food, and here I am eating it, and then inside I'm thinking, but it's, it's from the land that's poisoned. Do I eat it all? Will it affect me? Will I become sick from it? How will it look if I say no, so I have to take it? And just the look on her face was just sympathetic, and I knew she understood, how I felt in my heart about it, and it just made me feel calm about it.
And I think everyone was a little shooken up just from the interviews, and then just seeing the landscape and seeing leaching uranium from open mines trickling down where sheep were grazing. And then I thought of them feeding it to their children, and it was heart-wrenching, but at the same time I remember just talking to Fran, and then she was like, yeah, she wasn't really at ease about it, and it obviously it affected her too, because it hits her so deeply at home. But it made me aware of her dedication, that she had a bit thicker skin based on her research and her involvement, but it occurred to me right then and there that it's not it's not like a mask. You can't slip it on and slip it off and go back to whatever your day-to-day life is after that.
What have you understood to be the trajectory of your career or vocation? Has it been affected by this experience? If so, how?
Photography has always been my passion. I'm a graphic design major, so while I was out there, I took I did a lot of documentary photographs, and it really helped me discover their culture. And I'm actually going back in July to the area, and I'm bringing a photographer with me, and we're going to be doing some documentary work. So, yeah.
This experience helped me confirm what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know if I wanted to teach or do environmental work. But after seeing the reaction and seeing what is going on out there, as I was working in the school briefly and just interacting and communicating and what's it like here, and
some of the issues in the schools and the concerns of education in the area, I realized that it's not a black and white thing. It's not you do one or the other. It's I need to teach, and I also need to get an education in environmental science so I can help the students in the school with learning, but I can also help them understand their community. I can help educate them on what's going on, and they can help explain and translate to their families, but on a larger scale. If I can get some kind of environmental, education under my belt, I would really like to help improve the conditions, energy restorate, clean energy, habitat rehabilitation, etc.
Before I went on this trip, my career goal was environmental science, focusing mainly around sustainable agriculture and environmental awareness and things of that nature. And that hasn't really, my career goal has not changed much from that. I think it was enhanced by this experience.
As I had stated before, I am interested in nursing, so being able to go into another culture's life and learn about them and experience life with them has opened a doorway for me that I didn't think I would be able to have. And because of that, it's going to make me pursue and push further into nursing. And I don't know exactly what direction now I'm going to go. I was interested in neonatal, which is infant and premature birth. But I don't know if I'm going to go in that direction or if I'm going to travel now. If I'm going to want to go into different cultures, if I'm going to want to go into different communities, or maybe I'll do both. But because of this experience, it's made me question. It's made me want to do more. And I know with myself how I am, I will do more.
Service learning is found in almost all higher education institutions across the US and in many countries abroad. There is almost unanimous approval for service learning's benefit and relevance to student learning. But like all models of teaching and learning, service learning must strive to be exemplary. It's only through exemplary service learning experiences that the types of outcomes we wish for emerge. We find that students take greater ownership for their own education. They seek out and find new and innovative career pathways. They have responsibility for the types of educational experience they wish to have. And they truly change, both deeply and with the knowledge that they have. In this way, education is less about indifference and more about being the difference. It's that taking ownership of educational success and understanding education's purpose that makes service learning an incredibly simple yet transformational form of education. Dr. O'Neill's service learning at Tunxis is an example of this exemplary work. Students were able, across many semesters, to develop a partnership with the Navajo in Utah. The impacts were felt at the student level and at the community level also, so that both were informing each other's learning and behavior. Students were able to go to Utah and have an idea of what uranium contamination may be about, but it was through the experiences of the community, the experiences of the landscape, and the experiences of the Navajo spirituality that students developed a deeper level of learning and understanding of the issues at hand that were affecting the Navajo across generations. And the Navajo themselves, who had, by their own admission, limited understanding of the contamination problem, have become mobilized across several semesters of coursework and through many, many dialogues with Dr. O'Neill. They are now seeking for water samples to be tested. They are attempting to affect government policy. And then I will say, finally, it has been fascinating to see how students' career pathways themselves have been clearly and more clearly defined by these experiences. Their desire is to be the difference, and there is no indifference in their expressions.